I'm Hannah, 28 years old, and I just watched my entire family's Christmas plans crumble like gingerbread houses in an earthquake. 3 hours ago, I was supposed to be the free babysitter for 17 kids while everyone else enjoyed their fancy catered dinner. Instead, I'm sitting in first class, sipping champagne on my way to Cancun, reading their frantic text messages. You want to know how I discovered their scheme and orchestrated the most satisfying Christmas revenge? Let me tell you everything. Before we dive into this incredible journey of family betrayal and sweet revenge, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you someone who's also been taken advantage of by family during the holidays? Hit that like button if you've ever been the designated free babysitter at family gatherings, and don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell because trust me, you don't want to miss how this story unfolds. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even against family. Now, let me take you back to where this whole mess began. You know how some families have that one person who somehow becomes everyone's default solution to their problems? That was me. For the past decade, I'd been the responsible single daughter in the Miller family, the one everyone could count on to drop everything and help. Need someone to pick up Aunt Ruth from the airport at 4 a.m.? Call Hannah. Kids need watching during your anniversary dinner? Hannah's free. Planning the family reunion? Well, Hannah doesn't have kids of her own, so she has plenty of time. I work as a marketing director at one of the biggest tech companies in Seattle, managing million-dollar campaigns and leading a team of 15 people, but to my family, I'm just playing on computers all day. It all started during our November family meeting, one of those mandatory gatherings my mother Dorothy insists on having every few months to discuss important family matters. We met at her house, the same colonial where I grew up, with its perfectly manicured lawn and the kitchen that always smelled like cinnamon. Jennifer, my older sister, arrived late as usual, dragging her 3 kids behind her while complaining about traffic. Michael, my brother, sat in Dad's old recliner with his wife Emma, their 2 boys already running around breaking things. Our cousins Rachel and Dana were there too, along with their combined 7 children, and several other relatives who'd contributed to our family's small army of kids. The meeting started innocently enough. Dorothy served her famous apple cider while going through her agenda written in perfect cursive on her yellow legal pad. We discussed Thanksgiving, which had gone smoothly, then moved on to Christmas plans. That's when Jennifer cleared her throat and made the suggestion that would change everything. She proposed an adults-only formal Christmas dinner this year, something elegant and sophisticated where we could all dress up and enjoy adult conversation for once. The idea spread through the room like wildfire. Michael practically jumped out of his seat in enthusiasm, talking about how he hadn't had a proper adult evening in years. Emma nodded along, and soon everyone was chattering about restaurants and dress codes. Rachel, always the practical one, raised the obvious question about what to do with all the children. 17 kids ranging from 6 months to 12 years old couldn't exactly stay home alone. She suggested hiring professional babysitters, maybe setting up a fun party for the kids at someone's house while the adults enjoyed their evening. Everyone agreed this sounded perfect until Dorothy's face took on that pinched expression I knew too well. She started talking about budgets and how expensive the holidays were already. Professional babysitters for 17 children for an entire evening would cost a fortune, she said, wringing her hands in that dramatic way of hers. Then Jennifer said it, those words that should have been my first warning sign. She turned to me with that fake sweet smile she'd perfected over the years and suggested that since I didn't have children of my own, maybe I could help out with watching them. Just for a few hours, she said, and think how much fun it would be, all the cousins together for a special Christmas party. The room fell silent for a moment, and I noticed something strange. Nobody was looking at me. Dorothy studied her legal pad intently. Michael suddenly became fascinated with his phone. Emma examined her nails like they held the secrets of the universe. That silence told me everything, but I didn't fully understand yet. I asked some clarifying questions about the childcare arrangements, trying to understand what they were proposing. The answers came in vague waves. Dorothy mentioned they were still working out the details. Jennifer said something about keeping things flexible. Michael muttered about figuring it out closer to the date. But the more questions I asked, the more evasive they became. When I specifically asked about the ratio of adults to children for supervision, my mother actually changed the subject to her new curtains. The meeting continued with discussions about gift exchanges and dinner venues. They settled on Chez Laurent, the most expensive steakhouse in the city, known for its $200 per plate minimum and extensive wine list. What struck me as odd was how quickly they'd moved from budget concerns about babysitters to selecting such an expensive restaurant. I also noticed they kept mentioning the adults-only aspect, but when Cousin Trevor's name came up, Jennifer quickly said he could come since he was 18 now. His sister Sophia, who'd turned 19 in October, was apparently also included in the adult category. It wasn't until Emma accidentally let something slip that my suspicions really solidified. She was talking about the restaurant's private dining rooms when she mentioned they should make sure Hannah's room had enough space for all the kids. She caught herself immediately, face flushing red, and tried to cover by saying she meant to say the kids' room. But I'd heard it clearly. Hannah's room. As if it was already decided that wherever these children would be, I would be there too, and it would be my responsibility. The facade continued for 2 more weeks. Every family interaction felt like a performance, with everyone playing their parts perfectly. I kept waiting for someone to officially ask me about babysitting, but the request never came. Instead, there were subtle assumptions woven into every conversation. Dorothy called to ask what kinds of snacks kids liked these days. Jennifer texted asking if I still had that first aid certification from last year. Michael wondered if I remembered any of those camp songs from when we were kids. Each query seemed innocent on its own, but together they painted a clear picture. My revelation came by complete accident on a Sunday afternoon at Jennifer's house. We were looking at Pinterest for Christmas cookie recipes when her phone died. She asked to use mine, but I was in the middle of updating an important work presentation, so I handed her my old phone instead. She seemed reluctant but took it, logging into her Pinterest account. I went back to my laptop, but a few minutes later, I heard her gasp softly. Looking up, I saw her staring at the phone with wide eyes before quickly setting it aside, saying she'd found the recipe and memorized it. Her behavior was so odd that after she left the room to check on her kids, I picked up the phone to see what had startled her. There on the screen was her Facebook Messenger, still open. She must have clicked it by accident, and there at the top of her message list was a group chat titled Christmas, No Hannah. My heart stopped. The preview of the last message from Rachel read, "Just keep her thinking the kids' party is at 7. That gives us time to..." The preview cut off there, but it was enough. My hands trembled as I set the phone down exactly as she'd left it and returned to my laptop, pretending nothing had happened. That evening, I put my marketing skills to work. I created a fake Facebook account using a stock photo and a generic name, Sarah Johnson, then spent time making it look real. I joined some local community groups, shared a few public posts, and basically created a believable persona. Then I sent friend requests to various family member spouses, knowing they were less careful about their social media connections than my immediate family. Brad, Jennifer's husband, accepted within an hour. His profile was wide open, and there in his recent posts was a screenshot he'd shared to his fantasy football group with the caption, "My wife's family is insane, LOL." The screenshot was from the family group chat, and what I read made my blood boil. The conversation went back 2 months, starting right after our October family gathering. Dorothy had created the group specifically to plan how to trick me into babysitting. They discussed strategies like it was a military operation. Jennifer suggested waiting until the last minute to tell me, ensuring I couldn't make other plans. Michael proposed telling me it was a casual family gathering, then having all the parents leave once the kids were settled. Rachel worried I might catch on, but Dorothy assured everyone that I was too trusting and helpful to suspect anything. The financial details were even more insulting. Each couple had contributed $200 for their dinner spots, plus extra for wine and gratuities. They'd reserved Chez Laurent's most exclusive private dining room, complete with a specialized menu and dedicated waitstaff. The total cost was over $5,000 for the evening. But for the children's care?
Zero. Zip.
Nothing. They'd even discussed how to handle food for the kids and decided pizza would be fine, maybe some juice boxes, Nothing fancy, since I'd probably be too busy to eat anyway.
The cruelest part was how they talked about me.
Dorothy called me their built-in babysitter, lamenting that I was getting older and might start dating seriously soon, so they needed to take advantage while they could. Jennifer made jokes about how I always fell for their guilt trips. Michael said I was too career-focused to realize what was happening. They literally had a conversation about whether I was smart enough to figure out their plan, concluding that even if I suspected something, I'd be too nice to refuse once the kids were there. They'd thought of everything. The location would be Dorothy's house, far from the restaurant, so I couldn't possibly show up and confront them. They planned to disable the doorbell and take the spare key to ensure I couldn't leave once all the kids arrived. Someone even suggested putting a lock on the outside of the door, though that was shot down as too obvious. They created a detailed schedule showing which parents would drop off their kids at what time, staggered to prevent me from realizing how many I'd be watching until it was too late. Reading their messages, I saw years of manipulation laid bare. They referenced previous times they'd pulled similar stunts. The time I watched 9 kids during Thanksgiving while they went wine tasting, telling me it would just be for an hour. The Easter where I managed an egg hunt for 20 children while the adults had brunch at a country club. Birthday parties, anniversaries, date nights, all the times I'd been the default childcare because they knew I'd say yes. They even had a code system. When someone needed a babysitter, they'd text the group Project Hannah and coordinate their stories. I screenshot everything. Every message, every plan, every cruel joke at my expense. My hands shook with rage as I documented their deception, but I forced myself to be methodical. This wasn't just about one Christmas dinner. This was about a lifetime of being used, and I was done being their doormat. As I compiled the evidence, a plan began forming in my mind. They wanted to trap me? Well, 2 could play at that game, and I had something they didn't expect. The element of surprise and a complete lack of guilt about what I was about to do. Planning revenge while maintaining a perfect facade proved to be an unexpected talent of mine. For 3 weeks, I became the daughter, sister, and cousin they all expected me to be, perhaps even more so. When Dorothy called asking about my Christmas plans, I cheerfully told her I was keeping things low-key, maybe just watching some movies and relaxing. When Jennifer hinted about having a fun cousins party for the kids, I responded with enthusiasm about how much the children would enjoy spending time together. Every lying word they spoke, I met with a smile and eagerness that made them believe their plan was working perfectly. Behind the scenes, I was orchestrating something beautiful. The first step was securing my actual Christmas plans. I used my accumulated airline miles to book a first-class ticket to Cancun for December 23rd, returning January 2nd. The resort I chose was adults only, 5 stars, with a spa that offered a full-day package I immediately reserved for Christmas Day. I paid extra for the ocean view suite with a private balcony and arranged for champagne to be waiting in my room. Every booking was non-refundable, which was exactly what I wanted. This wasn't a plan I could back out of, and that commitment fueled my determination. Next came the preparation for my digital revenge. Using my marketing expertise, I created a comprehensive content calendar. I wrote posts exposing the family scheme, complete with screenshots of their group chat. I crafted emails to extended family members, including cousins in other states, great-aunts who still sent birthday cards, and family friends who'd known us for years. Each message was personalized, explaining not just this Christmas deception but providing context about years of similar treatment. I scheduled everything to release at specific times on Christmas Eve, ensuring maximum impact when family members would be checking their phones. The decoration strategy required more creativity. When Dorothy asked me to handle all the Christmas decorations for her house, citing my excellent taste and attention to detail, I agreed immediately. I even volunteered to use the family's shared Amazon account to order supplies, promising to find great deals. What I actually ordered was a mixture of Christmas decorations and what could only be described as Halloween meets 4th of July meets random clearance items. Inflatable turkeys, strings of plastic pumpkins, Uncle Sam figurines, and Easter Bunny window clings. I had everything shipped to my apartment, carefully removing the Christmas items and repacking the boxes with the holiday chaos I'd curated. The restaurant sabotage took more finesse. I discovered Jennifer had made the reservation under her name, but listed my phone number as the contact, probably to avoid getting confirmation calls. This gave me the perfect opening. I called Shay Lauren as Jennifer's assistant, explaining that there had been a terrible miscommunication about the event type. What was supposed to be a children's birthday party had been accidentally booked as an adult dinner. I apologized profusely for the confusion, confirming that yes, we definitely needed the private room set up for 40 children, with kid-friendly menu options and birthday party decorations. The restaurant staff was incredibly accommodating, assuring me they could transform the space into a magical children's wonderland. During this time, I also planted seeds of misdirection. I told Dorothy I was excited about trying new cookie recipes for the kids' party. I asked Michael his boys' favorite games, saying I wanted to plan some fun activities. I even went to Jennifer's house with craft supplies, showing her Pinterest ideas for keeping children entertained. Each interaction reinforced their belief that I was fully on board with being the designated babysitter. They relaxed more with each passing day, confident their plan was succeeding. The technical aspects of my revenge required careful timing. I used scheduling tools to queue social media posts across multiple platforms. The first would go live at noon on Christmas Eve, a simple photo of me at the airport with the caption, "When family treats you like free labor, treat yourself to a vacation." Subsequent posts would reveal more details, including the screenshots of their planning conversations. I created a Facebook album titled, "Why I'm Spending Christmas in Cancun," a story of family deception, and populated it with all my evidence, set to publish at 2 p.m. For the extended family emails, I used a delayed send feature, timing them to arrive at 4 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I knew most people would be settling in for the evening, checking messages before dinner preparations. The subject line read, "Why I won't be at Christmas dinner, the truth about the Miller family." I kept the tone factual rather than emotional, letting the evidence speak for itself. I included a postscript mentioning that I'd been saving receipts of unpaid babysitting for tax purposes and calculated that over 10 years, I'd provided approximately $35,000 in free childcare. The final touch was creating a false trail of babysitter arrangements. I texted the family group chat, the one I was actually included in, on December 20th, saying I'd found a great solution for the kids' party. I claimed to have connected with elite childcare services, who could provide professional sitters experienced with large groups. I even created a fake confirmation email, complete with official-looking logo and details about their staff arriving at 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve. This would give the parents false confidence to proceed with their plans while ensuring maximum chaos when no sitters actually appeared. Everything was in place. My bags were packed, my automated messages were scheduled, and my conscience was clear. They thought they were trapping me, but I'd spent 3 weeks building a house of cards around their deception. All that remained was to light the match and watch it burn. As I confirmed my airport shuttle for Christmas Eve morning, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years around my family, genuine joy about the upcoming holiday. My alarm went off at 5 a.m. on Christmas Eve, but I'd barely slept from excitement anyway. I showered, dressed in my most helpful daughter outfit, complete with a reindeer sweater Jennifer had given me 3 years ago, and loaded my car with boxes of decorations. The sunrise painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks as I drove to Dorothy's house, feeling like the universe was celebrating with me. I arrived at 6 a.m. sharp, using my key to let myself in, and immediately starting coffee for the early rising family members who'd surely appear soon. Dorothy emerged from her bedroom at 6:30, looking surprised but pleased to find me already there. I handed her a cup of her favorite hazelnut blend and a warm croissant from her preferred bakery, playing the role of devoted daughter to perfection. She hugged me, telling me how wonderful it was to have such a helpful daughter, and I hugged her back, knowing it would be the last embrace we'd share for a very long time. As she sipped her coffee, I cheerfully updated her on my decoration progress, showing her the labeled boxes I'd brought in from my car. By 8 a.m., the house was buzzing with activity. Jennifer arrived with her kids and husband. Michael's family pulled up shortly after, and various cousins began dropping by to help with preparations. I was everywhere at once, the perfect holiday helper. I made more coffee, entertained children, and carried box after box of decorations for my car. What nobody noticed was that I was selective about which boxes actually made it inside. The boxes labeled Christmas lights and tree ornaments stayed in my trunk, while festive decorations and holiday cheer made their way to the living room. The decoration process was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. I directed volunteers to different rooms, ensuring nobody got a complete picture of what was happening. Jennifer hung orange and black streamers in the dining room, thinking they were red and green in the dim morning light. Michael's wife Emma arranged the plastic pumpkins on the mantel, assuming they were ornamental Christmas puddings. The teen cousins strung up what they thought were multicolored lights, but were actually Halloween spider web decorations. I moved through the house with clipboard efficiency, checking off items and praising everyone's hard work. Around 10 a.m., just as the decoration disaster was reaching its peak, I announced I needed to run a quick errand. There was a special surprise for the kids' party, I explained, something I'd forgotten in my apartment. Dorothy tried to hand me a list of last-minute items to pick up, but I waved her off, saying I'd already gotten everything we needed and would be back in an hour. As I walked to my car, I made a show of checking that the Christmas decoration boxes were secure in my trunk, loudly telling Jennifer I didn't want them falling out during the drive. The moment I pulled out of the driveway, I initiated phase 2. From the parking lot of a nearby grocery store, I sent the group text about finding professional babysitters. The message was perfectly crafted, enthusiastic, and helpful. I explained that Elite Childcare Services had a last-minute cancellation and could provide 4 experienced sitters for the evening. I included the fake confirmation number and mentioned they specialized in large groups and had excellent references. The cost, I noted, was very reasonable for professional care, and I was happy to cover it as my Christmas gift to the family. My phone immediately exploded with responses. Dorothy texted asking what I meant by babysitters. Jennifer called 3 times in rapid succession. Michael sent a series of question marks. I ignored everything, putting my phone on airplane mode after sending one final text saying I was in a store with poor reception and would explain when I got back. Then I drove to the airport, humming Christmas carols and feeling lighter with every mile between me and my family's deception. At the airport, I treated myself to a massage at the premium lounge, keeping my phone off to maintain the illusion of poor reception. At exactly 2 p.m., while I was enjoying a glass of champagne and watching planes take off, I knew the restaurant was calling Jennifer about the children's party setup. I could picture her face as the manager explained about the balloon arrangements and kids' menu they'd prepared based on my helpful assistance call. The confusion, the dawning realization, the panic as she tried to understand how their $5,000 formal dinner had transformed into a Chuck E. Cheese experience. At 4 p.m., as my flight began boarding, I turned my phone back on for just long enough to post my airport selfie. The photo showed me in my first-class seat, champagne in hand, with a genuine smile that hadn't graced my face at a family event in years. The caption was simple but effective, explaining exactly why I was heading to Mexico instead of Dorothy's house. I tagged every family member involved in the deception and made the post public so extended family and mutual friends could see it. Then I included the first screenshot from their group chat, the one where Dorothy called me their built-in babysitter. The final touch came as the flight attendant asked passengers to put devices in airplane mode. I quickly opened my email to confirm all my scheduled messages had been sent. 53 emails to extended family members, each containing the full evidence of the Christmas trap. Posts scheduled across Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn, where several family members maintained professional presences. The decorations revealed as the Halloween hodgepodge they were. The restaurant flimlawn confirmed. The fake babysitters exposed. Everything unraveling at once while I soared above the clouds toward paradise. As the plane lifted off, I felt years of weight leaving my shoulders. Below me, my family was discovering that their free babysitter had finally said no in the most spectacular way possible. The 17 children were arriving at Dorothy's house expecting a magical Christmas party. The adults were dressing in formal wear for a restaurant that was now prepared for a kindergarten birthday bash. And I was heading to a place where the only person I needed to take care of was myself. I ordered another champagne from the attentive flight attendant and toasted to the best Christmas Eve of my life. By the time I landed in Cancun, my phone had accumulated over 200 notifications. I turned it on briefly during my layover in Dallas, just long enough to see the explosion of messages, before shutting it off again. The taxi ride to my resort was peaceful, windows down, warm Caribbean air replacing the Seattle chill. I checked in with only my passport and reservation number, wanting to delay the inevitable confrontation with my phone for as long as possible. But after settling into my beautiful suite and stepping onto the balcony overlooking the turquoise ocean, curiosity got the better of me. The text messages read like a symphony of chaos. Dorothy's started relatively calm at 2:15 p.m. asking where I was with the decorations, escalating to full capitals by 3 p.m. "Hannah, where are you? The children are arriving." Jennifer's messages evolved from confusion about babysitters to fury about the restaurant. Apparently, when they'd called to confirm their formal dinner, the manager had cheerfully informed them about the wonderful children's party setup, complete with a bubble machine and face painter who'd been specially booked. Michael's texts were shorter but more aggressive, filled with words like selfish and immature and ruining everything. The voicemails were even better. I poured myself a drink from the minibar and listened to them on speaker while watching the sunset. Dorothy's first message maintained her guilt-tripped tone, wondering if I'd been in an accident since I would never abandon family like this. By her fifth message, she was screaming about ungrateful daughters and how she'd raised me better than this. Jennifer had left a spectacular 3-minute rant where she called me every name she could think of while children cried in the background. The sound of 17 kids discovering Dorothy's house was decorated for Halloween instead of Christmas provided the perfect backdrop to her meltdown. The Facebook posts had created their own entertainment. My airport selfie had over 500 reactions and 200 comments within hours. Extended family members who'd received my emails were commenting with their own stories about being taken advantage of. Cousin Marie from Texas wrote about how she'd been tricked into hosting Thanksgiving for 30 people with 2 days' notice. Great Aunt Helen shared how Dorothy had volunteered her to make quilts for everyone 1 year, without asking. Family friends expressed shock at learning about the deception, with many saying they'd suspected something was off about how I was always conveniently available for childcare. The restaurant situation had apparently devolved into pure farce. According to angry texts from various family members, they'd arrived at Chez Laurent in cocktail dresses and suits to find their elegant private dining room transformed into Party Central. The hostess had enthusiastically guided them to their space, which featured bright balloons, streamers, and tables set with plastic plates shaped like dinosaurs. The specialized menu of filet mignon and lobster had been replaced with chicken nuggets, mini pizzas, and juice boxes. The sommelier they requested had been swapped for a party coordinator wearing a light-up Christmas sweater who kept trying to organize group games. But the best part was how quickly they turned on each other. Brad had posted in the family group chat, the one I wasn't supposed to know about, that he'd warned Jennifer this was a bad idea. Emma revealed that she'd felt uncomfortable with the deception from the start. Cousin Dana admitted she'd only gone along because everyone else seemed okay with it. The unified front they'd presented while planning my entrapment crumbled within hours. Michael blamed Jennifer for being too obvious with her hints. Jennifer blamed Dorothy for insisting on the elaborate deception instead of just asking me to babysit. Dorothy blamed everyone for not following the plan correctly. Meanwhile, the children's party at Dorothy's house had become its own disaster. With no actual babysitter present, the parents who'd already dropped off their kids had to be called back. Those still arriving found a scene of absolute chaos. Teenagers were trying to manage crying toddlers. The 6-month-old everyone forgot needed special formula was screaming. The house decorated in Halloween themes had frightened the younger kids. The older ones were asking why Aunt Hannah had promised special Christmas activities that didn't exist. Food was another issue since I'd been supposed to handle dinner, and nobody had thought to prepare backup plans. The extended family's response provided the only bright spot in the catastrophe. My phone showed dozens of messages of support from relatives who hadn't been part of the scheme. Uncle Robert, my father's brother, sent a simple "good for you, kiddo." They had this coming. Cousin Sarah from Oregon offered to fly me to Portland for next Christmas. My father's sister Patricia, who'd always been the family rebel, sent me a Venmo payment titled, "Drinks on Me in Cancun." Even relatives I barely knew were reaching out, sharing their own stories of family exploitation and applauding my courage in breaking free. By 8 p.m. their time, what should have been the height of their elegant dinner, the family situation had completely imploded. Parents were stuck at Dorothy's house trying to manage their own children without the convenient buffer of Aunt Hannah. The younger kids were overtired and cranky from the chaos. The older ones were asking uncomfortable questions about why everyone was so dressed up if this was supposed to be a kids' party. Someone had tried to order pizza but apparently got the address wrong, leading to another hour of hungry children. The fake babysitter confirmation I'd sent caused its own confusion, with family members arguing about whether to wait for sitters who would never arrive. The final twist came when local friends and acquaintances started sharing my posts. The story of a family trying to trick their single relative into free babysitting on Christmas resonated with people. It went mini-viral in Seattle parenting groups, with screenshots being shared along with personal stories of similar situations. 3 different people messaged me that they'd seen my story shared in their mom groups with comments like, "This is why we need to respect people's time," and "Good for her for standing up to them." The public humiliation added another layer to my family's misery, exactly as I'd intended. Christmas morning in Cancun was everything Dorothy's living room wasn't: peaceful, beautiful, and entirely under my control. I woke naturally at 8 a.m., no children jumping on the bed or family members calling with manufactured emergencies. Room service delivered a breakfast spread that would have cost more than my family allocated for feeding 17 kids. I ate fresh fruit on my balcony while scrolling through the continued fallout from yesterday's events, occasionally laughing out loud at particularly dramatic messages. The family group chat had become a digital war zone. Jennifer had calculated that the restaurant disaster cost them nearly $6,000 once all fees were included. Despite explaining the situation, Chez Laurent held them to their contract, charging full price for the specialized children's party setup they'd requested through my helpful phone call. The professional face painter and balloon artist had shown up as scheduled, adding another $500 to the bill. The restaurant manager, clearly enjoying the situation, had apparently taken photos of the well-dressed adults sitting at tiny tables, though these hadn't surfaced online yet. Michael's attempt to salvage Christmas dinner had failed spectacularly. After the restaurant debacle, he'd suggested everyone go back to Dorothy's for a family meal. But Dorothy's kitchen was unprepared for feeding 30-plus people. The children were beyond exhausted, having spent hours in chaos without proper supervision. Several parents had already taken their kids home in frustration. Those who remained found themselves trying to cook with whatever was in Dorothy's freezer, while managing overtired children and navigating a house still decorated for Halloween. The photos Emma secretly sent me showed a scene that could only be described as festive dysfunction. The extended family reaction had created its own problems. Aunt Margaret, Dorothy's sister, had called out the entire scheme in the extended family Facebook group, leading to a public airing of decades' worth of grievances. She brought up how Dorothy had similarly manipulated family members over the years, always positioning herself as the victim while orchestrating situations to her advantage. Other relatives chimed in with their own examples. The golden family matriarch image Dorothy had cultivated for years crumbled in real time as story after story emerged of her taking advantage of people's kindness. My scheduled posts had continued throughout Christmas Day, each revealing another aspect of the deception. The 10 a.m. post included screenshots of them calculating how much they'd save by not hiring babysitters. The noon post showed them joking about disabling the doorbell, so I couldn't leave. The 3 p.m. post was particularly effective, a side-by-side comparison of their restaurant menu featuring Wagyu beef and lobster tail next to their pizza and juice box budget for the kids. Each revelation sparked new waves of comments and shares, expanding far beyond our immediate social circle. Back home, allegiances were shifting rapidly. Brad, Jennifer's husband, had confessed to her that he'd been against the plan from the beginning but felt pressured to go along. This revelation sparked a massive fight on Christmas morning, with Jennifer accusing him of betraying her by not standing up earlier. Their eldest child had overheard enough to understand that Mommy had tried to trick Aunt Hannah, leading to uncomfortable questions Jennifer couldn't answer. The marriage strain was evident in the passive-aggressive posts they both made throughout the day. Emma, Michael's wife, took a different approach. She reached out to me directly with a long apology message, admitting she'd been treated similarly when she first joined the family. She revealed that Dorothy had made her cook entire holiday meals while 7 months pregnant, dismissing her exhaustion as dramatics. She'd gone along with the babysitting scheme out of fear of rocking the boat, but realized she'd become complicit in the same toxic dynamics that had hurt her. Her message ended with a promise to establish better boundaries and teach her children to respect people's time and choices. The professional fallout began trickling in as well. Several family members who worked in corporate settings discovered that my LinkedIn post about boundaries and professional worth had been shared by their colleagues. Michael, who worked in finance, found himself fielding questions from coworkers who'd seen the story and recognized him from tagged photos. Jennifer's small business Facebook page received several negative reviews from people who'd followed the story, forcing her to temporarily disable comments. The public nature of their deception had consequences they hadn't anticipated when planning their private scheme. Young cousins who hadn't been part of the plan started reaching out with their own perspectives. Sophia, the 19-year-old who'd been invited to the adult dinner, messaged me about feeling guilty for not speaking up. She'd overheard planning conversations but had been afraid to warn me, worried about being excluded from future events. Her 18-year-old brother Trevor shared similar sentiments, adding that he'd been uncomfortable with how the adults talked about me when I wasn't around. These messages revealed how the toxic dynamics had affected even those not directly involved. By evening Cancun time, I was enjoying a spa treatment while my family attempted damage control. Dorothy had tried to salvage her reputation by posting about family forgiveness and holiday spirit, but comments quickly reminded her of the screenshots, showing her calling me a built-in babysitter. Jennifer attempted to paint me as mentally unstable, suggesting I'd overreacted to a simple misunderstanding, but the evidence was too comprehensive for anyone to believe her narrative. Michael had gone silent on social media entirely, though Emma told me he'd spent the day apologizing to his children for the chaos and trying to explain why their aunt wasn't there. The Christmas dinner they dreamed of never materialized. Instead of elegant dining at Chez Laurent, they ate reheated leftovers at Dorothy's Halloween-decorated house. Instead of adult conversation over fine wine, they dealt with exhausted children and family arguments. Instead of the perfect family photo they'd planned, they had documentation of their cruelty spreading across the internet. And instead of their convenient babysitter handling everything, they faced the consequences of their deception while I watched the sunset over the Caribbean, finally free from their expectations. Returning home after New Year's was like entering a different world. My apartment building's lobby was filled with flower arrangements, all addressed to me. The doorman, who'd watched me leave for family events empty-handed and return exhausted for years, gave me a knowing smile as he helped carry them up. The cards ranged from genuine apologies to guilt trip attempts to angry declarations that I'd destroyed the family. I read each one before deciding which flowers to keep and which to donate to the nearby hospital, keeping only those from relatives who'd shown actual understanding of why I'd done what I did. The first week of January, Dorothy called a family meeting to address what she termed the Christmas incident. I agreed to attend, but only after setting clear conditions. The meeting would be at a neutral location. I would record the entire conversation, and anyone who raised their voice or made personal attacks would be asked to leave. She reluctantly agreed, and we met at a community center conference room that I'd booked and paid for myself, refusing to let them choose the venue and maintain control over the narrative. Walking into that room was like entering a battlefield where I'd already won the war. Jennifer sat with her arms crossed, hostility radiating from every pore. Michael looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his phone and avoiding eye contact. Dorothy had positioned herself at the head of the table as if this were still her domain to control. Other family members filled in around them, creating a clear divide between those who'd been part of the deception and those who'd supported me. I took a seat at the opposite end, placed my phone on the table with the recording app, visibly running, and waited. Dorothy started with what she clearly thought was a magnanimous speech about forgiveness and family unity. She spoke about misunderstandings and overreactions, about how families sometimes hurt each other without meaning to. But when she tried to minimize their actions as a simple miscommunication about childcare, I interrupted with printed screenshots of their 2-month planning conversation. The room fell silent as I went through each piece of evidence methodically, showing not just this incident, but the pattern of exploitation going back years. Jennifer tried to defend herself by saying all families help each other out, that it was normal to expect single relatives to contribute more since they had fewer responsibilities. I responded with a detailed breakdown of the financial value of my unpaid labor over the past decade. Babysitting at market rates, party planning, airport runs, emergency childcare, house sitting, pet sitting, and countless other favors totaled to approximately $43,000. I'd created an itemized invoice, copies of which I distributed around the table. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's approach was different. He admitted they'd been wrong, but argued that I'd gone too far in my response. Public humiliation, he said, wasn't the way to handle family disputes. I asked him how else I should have handled it, given that private conversations had been ignored for years. When he couldn't answer, I pointed out that public accountability was the only thing that had made them acknowledge their behavior. Without the extended family's involvement and social pressure, they would have continued the pattern indefinitely. The meeting shifted when Emma spoke up, supporting my position and sharing more examples of Dorothy's manipulation. This opened floodgates, with other family members revealing their own experiences. Brad admitted he'd been documenting similar situations in case his marriage to Jennifer deteriorated. Cousin Dana's husband, who'd remained quiet until then, revealed they'd been considering limiting contact with the family due to the toxic dynamics. The narrative Dorothy had tried to maintain crumbled as person after person shared stories of being used and manipulated. I presented my terms for moving forward, typed and printed like a business contract. I would no longer provide free babysitting, with rare exceptions that I would determine on a case-by-case basis. Any request for my time or assistance would be made at least 2 weeks in advance and would respect my right to say no without justification. Family events would be attended as a guest only, with no expectation of helping with planning, setup, or cleanup unless I specifically volunteered. Any attempt to guilt, manipulate, or trick me into unpaid labor would result in immediate and permanent cessation of contact. The contract also addressed financial expectations. If they wanted my professional skills for party planning, social media management, or any other service I provided in my career, they would pay my standard consulting rate. No more free labor disguised as family favors. Additionally, I expected acknowledgement of the past exploitation, not necessarily monetary compensation, but genuine recognition that my time and energy had value they'd consistently disrespected. Some family members signed immediately. Emma was first, followed by Brad, and surprisingly, cousin Rachel. Others, including Dorothy, Jennifer, and Michael, refused, calling my terms ridiculous and claiming real family didn't need contracts. I calmly informed them that their refusal meant we would have no relationship beyond basic civility at unavoidable gatherings. The choice was theirs, but I would no longer sacrifice my well-being for their convenience. Dorothy tried tears then, lamenting how I was destroying our family, but I'd become immune to her manipulations. The months that followed were challenging but liberating. About half the family respected my boundaries, and our relationships actually improved without the underlying exploitation. We could enjoy genuine conversations without me wondering what they'd ask me to do next. The other half maintained their distance, spreading stories about my selfishness to anyone who'd listen. But their narrative had lost power after the Christmas revelation, and most people saw through their attempts to paint themselves as victims. I started therapy in February to work through the deeper issues that had made me susceptible to family exploitation. My therapist helped me understand how being labeled the responsible one from childhood had created patterns of people-pleasing that extended beyond family into work and friendships. We worked on recognizing my own worth, setting healthy boundaries, and understanding that love shouldn't require constant sacrifice. The process was difficult, but transformative. By spring, my life had completely changed. Weekends previously spent providing free childcare were now mine to enjoy. I joined a hiking club, took up pottery, and started dating without worrying about family obligations interfering. My career flourished when I applied the same boundary-setting skills at work, earning a promotion after years of being overlooked. Friends commented on how much happier and relaxed I seemed, no longer carrying the weight of family expectations. The extended family response remained overwhelmingly positive. I received messages throughout the year from relatives sharing how my stand had inspired them to set their own boundaries. Cousin Sarah in Oregon successfully negotiated fair compensation for planning her parents' anniversary party. Uncle Robert refused to be the default driver for every family event. Even some younger cousins began standing up for themselves, refusing to be voluntold for tasks without their consent. The ripple effects of one Christmas rebellion had created lasting change. Looking back now, that Christmas in Cancun was the best gift I ever gave myself. Not just the vacation, though watching the sunset from my private balcony while my family dealt with their self-created chaos was certainly satisfying. The real gift was freedom. Freedom from guilt, from manipulation, from the exhausting role of family doormat. I learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary. That family who truly loves you will respect your time and choices. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable toxic behavior. So to anyone watching who's been designated their family's default babysitter, party planner, or general servant, know that you deserve better. Your time is value. Your choices matter. And if your family can't respect that, maybe it's time for your own Christmas revolution. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you've experienced similar family dynamics, I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Did you find the courage to set boundaries? What happened when you finally said no? Share your experiences, and let's create a community of people who refuse to be taken advantage of, even by family. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself and living life on your own terms. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to prioritize themselves, especially during the holidays. And remember, sometimes the best family gathering is the one you don't attend. Wishing you all the boundary-setting success and peace you deserve. Until next time, this is Hannah, reminding you that your worth isn't measured by what you do for others, but by how you value yourself.